Hey, what's going on everybody? James here, and today we are talking about, is Rolex the end game when it comes to watch collecting? And this was a fun topic that I saw in a forum recently, and so I thought I would bring it to a video, changing the format a little bit just because I don't always have all the watches that I want to show or talk about, and so I think this will make it a little bit easier. So that's why I'm doing the face-to-face here instead of the watch in front of the camera. So, is Rolex the end game in collecting? I don't think there's an answer to that question. I think a lot of people love to hate on Rolex because it is of a scale and a size that's pretty enormous. I mean, they're making north of 1 million watches per year, and still the demand for them is off the charts. You can't go into an authorized dealer typically and just buy the watch that you actually want unless you have a purchase history, and that's been that way for several years at this point. So the demand is definitely there for Rolex. The quality is also there when it comes to what they make. Again, they use a different standard than just the COSC standard. Again, COSC standard gives a certain range of deviation for the timekeeping of a watch. Rolex sets the bar higher than that. They use a slightly higher standard. They call it superlative chronometer status, which is +2, -2 seconds per day. And if you've owned a Rolex, you probably have seen, like, they keep really good time. They just do. They've got a huge catalog, plenty of different options to choose from of course, kind of the classics of the GMT, the Sub, and the Daytona, to more interesting, I think, options like I have the Sky Dweller, which is absolutely one of my favorite models. I had the Yachtmaster 2 for a while. That one I really liked. Some of the 1908 stuff that they're doing right now is pretty incredible, and they're really starting to up their game a little bit, like the new guilloche dial on the 1908 in platinum. I thought it was really cool, and so I think when you look at Rolex as a whole, it very well could be the end game for some people. And that is because there's a level of brand identification and prestige and heritage and achievement. If you think about who Rolex uses as their ambassadors typically, a lot of it is sports. A lot of sports figures are big Rolex folks, athletes, things like that. There's also some like musicians and just like different artists, things like that. So they do a great job of building the strength of their brand so that it's very strong. And a lot of people identify it with that. Again, if you would ask most people, like the average person, not one of us who's out here in the watch nerd world watching these videos, but if you would ask the average person, like, hey, what are some watch brands that you know? Most people are going to know probably very few, but I would think that one of them is going to probably be Rolex. And so you've got to give that some brand credence. The fact that Rolex has been able to create that level of brand image, that people identify it as a watch brand, is pretty powerful because you don't see that a lot. I mean, even brands that are associated with like the Olympics, not everyone would think of Omega. They might because if they are like James Bond fans, but not everyone's going to think of Omega for that. And so Rolex is an awesome brand. I don't care what anybody says about it. Like, people can hate on it, whatever they want to do. I understand the frustration of the AD games and having to, buy things that you may not necessarily want to get into a piece that you actually do want. I understand all of that. I certainly had to go through that in getting my Sky Dweller. I did not buy it from an authorized dealer. I got it from a secondary dealer. And so I do think that I get why some people are turned off by Rolex. I understand why people critique Rolex. But at the end of the day, you can't hate on them for not being a successful company. They are insanely successful. You can't really say that they don't make good watches because they make great watches, some of the highest quality. And in terms of performance, they're also really good. Now, again, you will find in the watch world those people who criticize Rolex and say, well, it's all machine made. There's no hand finishing. There's no micro beveling and anglage and all this decorations of movements and things like that. I get that. I hear everything that you're saying. And I also have a great appreciation for that. I mean, I have pieces that I appreciate that they do that. But that's not what you're looking for when you're buying a Rolex. You're looking for, one, the brand for sure. You're looking for the dependability, the reliability, Again, it could be a little bit of that. Maybe it's tied to a milestone for you, something like that. So is Rolex the end game when it comes to watches? Yes and no. It just depends on who you are, depends on what you're trying to get out of the hobby. And that's one of the reasons why I always say, like, I want you to get out of watches whatever you want to get out of watches. That may be different than what I want to get out of watches, and that's totally cool. It's a big enough industry for us all to find something that we like, and not everybody's going to like everything, and you just have to be okay with that. I think if you continue to just consume mindlessly the hype of watches, particularly around Rolex, particularly around some of the models like the Daytona, I understand why people get burned out over it, and they're like, well, I'm not going to buy Rolex anymore, or I'm not interested in paying attention to Rolex, or I don't want to hear about Rolex. I understand all of it, but the value in those products is for the consumer. That's what it's about. And again, you can go and buy a Rolex Datejust 36. That's got your basic, great design, water resistant, great timekeeping, all those things. And you're going to spend a little bit more than if you go and buy an Omega Aquaterra that has the same kind of features and functionality and a different design, or a Grand Seiko. I do think, Rolex is a premium player in the watch space. Yeah, it's not Lange and Zona. It's not Patek Philippe. I understand that, but they are a premium player because of the scale, the consistency, the reliability, and the brand that they have built over the time. So I'm a big Rolex fan. Again, I understand why people don't like it, but I do like it, and I think that there's a lot of value that they bring. And the watch world would not be the same without Rolex in it. It just would not. Whether you follow kind of the hype train of what's up and coming or what's the new release, or whether you are a little bit more refined with what you look for and you go in and you're looking for a certain model year of Datejust, or like a Cellini model. I really loved those. I was kind of sad when the Cellinis disappeared. So there's stuff out there for everybody. You've got to just find what you like, and once you have something in your collection, Rolex or not, you've got to have the appreciation for what goes into it, because there's a whole lot of refining over time that has gone on to make Rolex the brand that they are today. So is Rolex the end game? It might be. Could be. Some people work their entire life, to save and to buy a Rolex Datejust because it's the model that they've always wanted. And then there's other people that it's like, they got to get that out of the way, as their first, entry level piece, and then they go on to something crazy, like a Richard Mille or whatever else they do. And then there's people who, again, like myself, I find it kind of fits into a collection, and it's great. So those are my thoughts on whether or not Rolex is the end game for watches. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Again, like, comment, subscribe, and my goal for you is that you get out of watches whatever you want to get out of watches, because I want you to love your collection and know what you have and be a satisfied collector. So my name is James. Hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.